time for a fine time.
Hello, party people. Hello, Nintendo people. Hello, Switch people. Hello, online people. It's your boy Dre. I am here with Steve.
Guess what, guys? There's something new to play.
Why do they say that, actually, when it's like, yeah, we know there's something, just show me what it is.
I kind of like it. It's cute, even though we all get the news online. I don't know, I kind of like it, watching the things flip on. It's cute.
I like that part. But they should, I'm just saying they could skip there's something new to play and just have it, what's the new things to flip over, and you go to them?
What, you just want the little new boxes, but you don't want to be alerted to them?
Yes, I want this to cater to my very specific tastes in this matter.
I think you should just write a letter.
I don't think Doug Bowser is reading that. Anyway, as you can tell, we're here to talk Nintendo Switch Online. We did this, by the time this airs, I guess it'll be roughly 6 months ago. And we played a bunch of games, Steve, and they mostly were not very good outside of Pokemon trading card game. But this time we played much better stuff, even though there's still a bit of crap.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with these apps. You take the good with the bad. That's kind of what I like about these apps, but that's another conversation that no one wants to have, it seems like, online. I want Donkey Kong Country. It's already been on there forever. Get over it.
There's no way people still say that.
There's still the occasional I want Earthbound.
Well, it just proves exactly what we always said, right? These people don't actually care what's on there or actually plays them. They just want a bitch. I think that proves our theory completely right.
But Andre, what happens if we don't want a bitch and just want to play some games? What happens then?
Great segue, Steve. That means we are going to do another selection of 6 Nintendo Switch Online games on these apps, and we're just going to give our thoughts. This time I thought we'd give them a letter grade. That's my little shakeup for this time. What do you think? Letter grades?
Sure, letter grades. Everyone likes a letter grade. People like to say they're subjective, and yeah, that's true, but shut up.
Yeah, shut up. This is our show, okay? We can give letter grade. I mean, I like giving letter grades. It's always been my favorite way to rate stuff rather than 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 stars or whatever. I've always liked grades. And that's what I do on Blue Sky, and whenever I beat a game, I give it a grade, and I figured we should do that here as well. I think you do the same, right, with grades?
I've been doing that this year on Blue Sky, but it's kind of hard because with the different types of games, because is it the same B weighted? I'm not getting into that right now either.
Yeah, but that's the same with numbers too. It's the same 8 you'd give Batten Kaitos, the same 8 you would give Soul Hacker. I mean, who knows, right? Like it's always tough with any grading system, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna get started with our first game right now. Our first game is Devil World, developed and published by Nintendo, released for the Famicom in October 84 in Japan, July 1987 in Europe, and released for the first time ever in North America at the end of 2023 on Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Switch Online. We finally got this game in America, Steve. Holy shit. I legitimately never thought that would happen.
I've been sitting here forever wondering why it hasn't. I mean, remember when we had the import section where they tack on another $1 or $2 and said for games that we never got here, like, okay, you can play these finally, and we still never got Devil World.
What's the best Famicom disk system treasure we got on there? Upa?
Yeah, probably.
Probably Upa, right? That's a rightful Konami classic. Anyway, Devil World was created by the dynamic duo of Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, as games were wont to do in the early 80s by Nintendo. And Devil World is a maze game. in the style of Pac-Man, where our hero Tamagon collects crosses and Bibles to smite his enemies as he gobbles up all the dots. The devil at the top of the screen changes the direction of the scrolling maze as well. So that's the hook of Devil World. Gee, Steve, I can't imagine why we didn't get this in America. I can't fathom.
But Andre, you're fighting the devil. You're not playing as the devil, despite being in a devil world.
I don't know why I thought you were going to say you're not fucking the devil.
You're not fucking the devil either on the NES Famicom, you nuts.
They can't depict that.
Not very well in 1984.
Not very well at all. So what is Tamagon? Is he like a lizard? I always think of him as like a dinosaur that just hatched. He looks like a little guy, right? But he looks like a baby. He a baby?
The first time I've seen Tamagon was a Smash Brothers Melee trophy, and he looks like, in that game, they had that, fairly early 3D render when they were playing around with the GameCube stuff, and he looks like Bub and Bob's his cousin they don't talk to anymore. in that game.
Yeah. You know what? Those Melee trophies were rendered pretty fucking good for the time. I remember the Clue Land looking really good. Yeah, I like that. Anyway, I think of him as a just hatched dinosaur. That's my take. Oh, you know what he is? Okay, you know how like on the NES versions, I think like Adventure Island 2 and 3, you could ride like dinosaurs? Think of like a little baby one of them.
I see it.
Yeah. Anyway, Devil World, Steve. This game is really great, I think. Like, you never know how, like, the Forbidden Fruit games will turn out versus, like, how you imagine them or whatever. And, yeah, this isn't very forbidden. I mean, ROMs are a thing and have been forever, right? Like, at any point, I could have played Devil World if I wanted, but I just never did for whatever reason. And, yeah, this is my first time playing it, and I really do think it's great.
Yeah, honestly, this is probably the best of what you can ask for a maze game outside of Pac-Man at the time. There were a lot of them that no one's really played today, but back then I feel like they were everywhere and on everything. And I feel like even though there's a handful of new elements like the Bibles and using fire for self-defense and even the shifting maze, it's still simple enough that you could pick up and play this while still adding enough challenge to keep it interesting.
For sure. I really like the fact that it's like a few stages looped, almost like a Donkey Kong or a Popeye or other games that Nintendo has made in that fashion, because other maze games don't do that. You just kind of go to the next maze, right? This sort of has a loop to it. You have, what are they? One round with the Bibles and the crosses, and right, and then you have the second round where you have to get the 4 Bibles and put them in the centerpiece.
Yeah, if they made this today, this would be some kind of rated M bullshit where you have to we have to stop the devil world. Shove the Bibles in the hole.
It would be like the intro of Tales of Berseria, where Homeboy went up to the thing and like with that crimson red moon.
Oh,
and
God, you're right.
Yeah, you gotta shove the Bibles in there to trap them or something like that. Yeah, I really like that loop. And then the third stage, if you will, is a bonus stage. Nice little tune there, huh?
Yeah, too bad you can, actually die in the bonus stage.
You can. But do you actually lose a life though? Or
I don't think so, but carelessness does end the game very quickly and get you squished.
I never do complete very much. I'm not very good at that bonus stage. It is yeah. I love the design of the devil. Speaking of Smash Melee, I think that's how a lot of us were sort of introduced to this game existing. I think I knew of it before because I probably read about it in a magazine, but I had never really laid eyes on it. And the devil, I love that guy, man. The way the maze is going down, the way he points with those red gloves and he has those red boots. I love that guy. Strikes a little pose when he points to the right or left. It's great.
The devil, it's not just the pointing, although a lot of it is the pointing. I like this. It's the sound effects too, like
yeah,
whenever they're doing that.
It's really great. I like it. It has a little short, scary, little spoopy tune whenever he's about to change the direction. Boom, 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 and then he just points another. It's fantastic, man. It's like you said up front. It's funny that like the maze genre is a genre where really it's Pac-Man and it's a bunch of bad imitators. Like we don't remember those other games. I think isn't Fantasy Zone 2 the Tears of Opa Opa, whatever that one is called, isn't that like a maze game? Or no, it's called Fantasy Zone The Maze, I think, actually, literally. There's like a maze version for Master System. That happened. You're looking at me like you didn't know this existed, which I don't think you did.
No, I didn't. To me, the challenger, and I'm putting that in the most generous quotes possible, like there are a lot of lock and chase stands out there, and a lot of people are hoping the Game Boy version comes to Nintendo Switch Online. And guys, when it does, I'll play it. But
yeah. I love this game. Let's give it a grade. I'm going to give it a B+. I almost want to give it higher. I feel like it's a little... You know what? I'm going to change my mind on the air. Fuck it. I'm going to move it up. A-. A- for Devil World.
I'm going to give it a straight A. It's fun in short bursts, and it could just, just go in and play it, lose, come back later, play it, lose. It's fun.
Definitely very good. All right, let's move on to our next game.
The next game on our list today is Journey to Silius. This was released for the NES in 1990, developed and published by Sunsoft, and it's tough as fuck.
It be tough.
It's a run-and-gun platformer like we have so very many of on the NES.
We do. This is a 8-bit ass game, everybody. It's it's very NES as hell. It's exactly the kind of thing. If you were to put any NES cartridge into that system and you had no idea what the game is, this is basically what you would expect it to play like as a baseline. This is exactly the kind of game you imagine. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for you is personal.
I think that is the feeling I got when I had the cartridge however long ago. I'm like, yep, this is an NES game, and it is not complete garbage. We will keep this handy.
Yep.
But anyway, one of my favorite things to bring up about this game is that, just telling the uninitiated that Sunsoft, they were enjoying their licensed game contracts around this time. They made Batman. Everyone liked Batman. Sure. And this in particular was supposed to be the Terminator until it was pulled. I guess it expired or they asked for more money. So Mindscape would end up getting the actual Terminator game. If we were reviewing that, I would just give it an F and insist we move on. And that would leave Sunsoft high and dry. But because they're Sunsoft, they're scrappy enough to just start asset flipping into what we got here. And like I said before, what we got here is something that, is incredibly brutal. It starts out, fair enough. We all know Sunsoft knows how to make a video game with a strong first impression, if nothing else. Plays good, sounds good, but I felt like by level 3, it starts really beating your ass in, and you start wondering what you did wrong with your life.
It's a toughie, and it rides that line that we always talk about, right? So I feel like this game can be pretty cheap sometimes. As, games from that era can be. I'm willing to accept a bit of cheapness. I feel like this can go too far. It does cross the line. And it's very hard to describe what that line is between challenging and cheap. Okay, so Journey to Silius?
I've never heard it said out loud.
Yeah. They couldn't have done like a little crappy Journey to Silius up front at the yeah. I mean, they probably had a little space.
Watch them remake this now that Sunsoft is back, and then we're gonna have to deal with this for the rest of our lives.
By the way, Steve is not joking. They literally was it like an announcement video that literally was Sunsoft is back. That was like the name of the video.
Yeah, I mean, any day now, probably after we upload this, just to spite us, they're to say, return to Silius, or Silius. Whatever.
Return to Castle Silius. Yeah, anyway, this game is not cheap on the level of like Mega Man 9 or Cuphead or any habitual line stepper, shall we say, right? It doesn't cross a line as much as like games that are truly cheap. And yes, out there, I'm sorry if you love Cuphead, that game is often very cheap. I'm sorry. You can like it all you want, but it is. I like Cuphead too, but it's the truth. All right. But Journey to Silius, see, I can't even choose now. Journey to Silius does feel weighted too heavily against the player, in my opinion. Because enemies will appear with like spread guns that you better react to real fast or else, right? It feels like reacting to a jab in Street Fighter. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you better know that they're going to do that, which leads to rote memorization, which is not bad. I actually don't think that's bad in games like this to a degree. Now, if that's the entire game, like Contra Shattered Soldier or something like that on PS2, that's when I have a problem. I'm like, okay, that's too much. But Steve, I'm willing to accept some memorization, but this game really wants you to drill that shit into your head, and I don't think I'm really going to.
Yeah, things like that and the relatively small health bar, it almost feels spiteful in a way.
Yeah, it's, well, I did read that quote. Remember last year when I did beat Blaster Master for the first time? I did it for one of our big deal shows, and I read a quote from one of the guys who made it, and he did say, we wanted to make a beautiful game, but we wanted the players to suffer for it. That was literally what he said. Suffer.
Yeah, I remember
and that was Sunsoft, man. You've played Batman NES, haven't you?
Yeah, not lately, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, man. They just didn't give a fuck. And that's that golden age of Sunsoft that we know and love, really, mostly love. Some people might think like, oh man, their games were too much, but honestly, I always thought the challenge was worth it, but Journey to Silius doesn't feel as worth it as those other games that we mentioned sometimes. So also for people who might think, well, like, enemies that appear right in front of you or, memorization or like whatever, someone might think, well, that just sounds like Mega Man. And you're right, but Mega Man gives you a big health bar, and the enemies drop tons of life refills and weapon refills and stuff like that. You don't get that in Journey to Silius. It does not give a fuck about you. So that's how I feel. I wanted to be able to call this game great, but I just can't do that, Steve. It has all the right elements, and it very nearly may have been great with like just a few difficulty tweaks, but as it stands, I'm going to give it a B, and I feel like I'm being a bit generous. I like just because of the audio visual element of this, but I'm going to give it a B.
There is a very nice audio visual element that I can't take away from it, but it's a very special gamer that's going to put up with everything Journey to whatever we're going to call it gives you. So just a average C rating from me.
Oh man, really? It feels lower than I thought you might.
Yeah.
Can I talk you into a C plus? Can I talk you into a C plus because Naoki Kodaka, the guy who composed this, who also composed Blaster Master and Batman, legendary composer at Sunsoft, he brought the tunes. You want to bump it up to a C plus for music.
We're not buying grades on Fine Time, Andre. It's a C.
Fine. Oh, Jesus. Bitchin' tunes, though. I gotta agree. Classic Sunsoft shit. All right, let's move on to our next game. And that next game will be Snake, Rattle, and Roll, which was released for the NES in July 1990, developed by Rare, published by Nintendo. And Snake, Rattle, and Roll is an isometric co-op platformer. You don't have to play co-op, where you play as a snake navigating this busy obstacle course style playfield. Think like Marble Madness or something like that, but you're a snake and it's more of a platformer thing instead of like a physics puzzle game thing. Is that accurate? It's the best I could describe it.
Well, yeah, but Andre, Rareware, aren't they, under the Microsoft umbrella these days?
Yeah, but that doesn't preclude them from. I mean, shit, you remember the Game Boy Advance era? They dumped all their stuff on there. They didn't care.
I don't know. This almost feels a little different, but anyway.
Well, the title screen says 1989, though, instead of 1990. This definitely came out in 90.
I mean, I'm not going to call you a liar because I think I would have been 3 years old at the time, but they're not going to, you can't go in and patch in an NES cart to change the release date of the game.
Yeah,
patch
but I
notes, change copyright of game.
But why did it say that in the first place, though? I guess that's when they finished the game and they just stagger the. I don't know. Who knows? So I'm the guy on here who always says Rare's best time was the NES. I'm that guy. All the Banjo-Kazooie truthers out there or the Donkey Kong Country truthers out there, nah. Rare wasn't the shit on SNES and N64 like they were on the NES. And I still believe that, Steve. However, Snake, Rattle, and Roll fucking sucks. This game is terrible. It's really bad.
Look, I am the guy that appreciated the Rareware that was going to take whatever cheeky pun that they were going to make and letting it fly. I mean, you get it because there was a song called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. Anyway.
Yeah, totally understand what you're doing there, Rare.
If I'm having fun, you could be stupid with your name. I mean, remember back when, Smash Ultimate, and they had the K. Rool trailer. I think, Steve Mails came on. He's like, if I thought we're still making the games with him this many years later, I would have came up with a better name. They all knew what they were about back then.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting through this, but Andre, I wasn't having fun with this, and it's got nothing to do with the theme or the copyright grazing tunes. I thought those were fun, actually, or even the general object of the game. I thought they had a reasonable concept. It's the damn controls, Andre. The controls ruin everything.
Is that really your problem?
Yes.
Because I feel, okay, so to explain, it's an isometric game, as we said, but it's one of those games where up, down, left, and right send you in different diagonal directions instead of just sending you up, down, left, and right. So everything feels off axis. You have to actually press a diagonal to go up, down, left, or right, which is weird. Now, I'm not saying I like that, and in fact, I just wish it were just press a diagonal to go diagonal. However, even if the game controlled that way, I still think this would blow.
Oh, I wouldn't say I was going to raise my grade, dramatically, but I think I would have been able to finish the game if I didn't feel like every level was the ice level in the first place, and we're just jumping into spikes or off a cliff or into enemies because, oh wait, what direction am I supposed to push mid jump to tilt in the other direction?
But like what you said, that's really the problem. It's the physics of it. It's a slip slidey nature. It just doesn't feel good to jump on stuff. Even as I played some more and I really got a grip on the controls, it still didn't feel great to play. Making jumps and stuff felt terrible. Your jump feels really stubby. I get it. It can't be like Mario jumps because it's not that kind of game. At the same time, it just didn't feel great. Also, the objectives and level design. Okay, so they want you to get these like little orb things and build like a bigger snake. Because like if as you get hit, you lose like snake sections. You could be just like the head of a snake, right?
That's Rareware for you.
Yeah, but they want you to like, I don't know, man. The game objectives too were just a bit much. If it wants you to play like hide and seek, like find these little items and put them in the thing or whatever, but it's like, man, I don't feel like doing that. Attacking isn't fun with your little forked tongue. It's a good idea, but again, it feels so stubby that it's like you just feel like you get hit by everything. Nothing in this game feels good. Like the audio does. And I'm sure David Wise had a lot of fun doing riffs on like American rock and roll from the 50s. But like, by the way, is it just me? Or does this entire game feel like it was born from having a cute title? What about Snake, Rattle, and Roll? And then they like made a video game.
Well, as we will know, this would not be the last time they did that, because I'm pretty sure they admitted to Grab by the Ghoulies being title first, then game later.
You can tell. I'm sorry, Snake, Rattle, and Roll gets a big fat D from me. I'm giving this game a D, Steve.
Yeah, it's a D from me too, and it's the tunes that are keeping it where it is from being a big ol' F.
Really? Wow. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, this game sucks, but unfortunately, we played another sucky rare game.
Yeah, Andre, we did play another sucky rare game. That certainly wasn't our intention. We didn't think all the rare games would suck, but yeah, anyway, Battletoads in Battlemaniacs came out for the Super Nintendo in July 1993. Developed by Rare and published by TradeWest. Remember them?
Oh, I sure do.
And it's a sequel to the original Battletoads. Your mileage will vary on that. I think we all just remember the first two levels being fun. And it was released within a month of the NES version of Battletoads and Double Dragon. And the 16-bits came out later. I could have sworn all those came out at the same time based on magazine ads, but what the hell do I know as a dumb kid?
Well, as a kid, I told you my friend had the NES version of Battletoads and Double Dragon, so that's the only version that I played. And he had a Super Nintendo as well, so I figured, I don't know, why did they get the NES version? Now I realize that was the one that came out. The other ones didn't exist yet. So I thought they all came out at the same time, too. So this was news to me doing research for this episode.
I guess they were still trying to keep the NES afloat for however long.
Well, I think they figured if they waited until Christmas 93, no one would give a fuck. I mean, people probably already didn't anyway, but that felt like more of a Super Nintendo Genesis thing to push. Anyway, Battletoads and Battlemaniacs. Before we get going talking about this, can we maybe talk a little bit about why we think this game tends to get forgotten about? Because everyone talks about the original. People talk about the Genesis port of the original Battletoads more than even the Super Nintendo sequel for some reason. Do you find that weird?
Only in the sense that we don't talk about it at all, really. I guess you're talking about the Genesis version to compare it to the NES version, but it is kind of weird that we just gloss over that we have Battletoads 2 and we just nah.
Yeah, see, I wonder how this sold. I'm sure it did fine, right? I'm sure it didn't do terribly. But okay, spoiler alert, as we already spoiled, we don't think this game is very good. But the original Battletoads isn't that good either. It's a great idea, but not that much fun to play in execution because the difficulty is so asshole-ish. And maybe people were over it, Steve. Maybe that was it. People were like, nah, I've been through Battletoads already. I don't want to do this again in 16-bit. I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, for me, playing this in the year of our Lord 2024, I felt like the game started out promising enough, at least compared to, other beat-em-up offerings on Nintendo Switch Online. Russian Beat and the other two games just starring the guy with the hat that aren't very good.
Yeah.
You play as one of the titular Battletoads and you smack it around the Queen's minions on a small variety of moves, including one that triggers when two guys corner you just so. I mean, it's not great, but the music and sound are very satisfactorily 90s where. But,
yeah, the music is very it's kind of cock rock, right? It's it's weird like late 70s, early 80s kind of hard rock. It's weird.
It's weird, but it fits, I think.
Sure. That was still a sound that was viable in 1993 for sure. It just, I mean, I'm not saying it had to sound hella modern, early 90s, it's Super Adventure Island, Yuzo going nuts on that thing. At the same time, it felt, you know what? You're right. It feels appropriate for Battletoads, but with that kind of music, you imagine them driving a big monster truck into the stage and hopping off, and then you get to fight things.
We're in a volcano. I feel like that's close enough.
I guess so. Can't drive your monster truck into the volcano.
Gotta leave the monster truck at home. But They don't really leave all the toys at home, though, because level 2 happens, and then you're on the surfboard thing, and smack guys around that way.
Excuse me, Steve. It's the cyber surfboard, it looks like.
Oh, my God. You're right, Andre. It's the cyber surfboard. That's different than the cyber rope that probably was in the first game where you did that. And then there was the bonus level where you rode around on a betting chip for a play at lives. And then you do the turbo tunnel again. And then it hits me, Andre, we're doing the first fucking game again, where we can't decide to just stick to a beat 'em up, heaven forbid. You know, maybe everyone would remember the game fondly if it was just a beat 'em up, but we got to try a little bit of everything. And then everyone goes, oh yeah, that's why I don't play Battletoads for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know why they insist on this. Now, okay, I know nobody in the world agrees with me, but we've talked about this before on a previous NSO show about Donkey Kong Country 2. And one of the reasons why I really don't like it is because of the gimmickry. I just want a platform, man. I don't want to do entire long-ass stages of barrels or, like, here's your 17th swimming level. And I don't mind swimming levels. I'm not one of those people that bitch about them. I love them. But it's enough already, right? Like, there's just, can I platform? Can I hop and bop? It's almost like they were embarrassed of making a platformer or thought people would get bored and be like, now you got to do all this other shit. And it's like, no, I really don't want that other shit. That's how I feel about Battletoads as well. It's almost like, okay, you had a couple levels in the original being a beat 'em up. Now, fuck you. And this game only gives you one level of being a beat 'em up before it's like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's one level of being a beat 'em up, because after the turbo tunnel, there's what? Let's talk about platforming some more. Because then you gotta start platforming from snake to snake. Are we fighting things on the snakes? No, we're just hopping from snake to snake. Perfect platforming. At this point, I was just hitting rewind because I'm like, let me just see if I can make it to the end of the fucking game. And the answer is no, because the level after that, they have the roller coaster, I guess, because I guess it's strapped to dynamite, or there's dynamite all over the place, because you better be turning that D-pad in the right direction at the right time, or you're getting your ass to blown the fuck up. And I'm just in there, you know what? I don't have to, play Battletoads and Battlemaniacs all the way through to prove that it's terrible. It's just kind of bad.
Yeah, man. It sucks because I really wanted to like this. I thought maybe, okay, the NES version is what it is. It's not very good. It's an asshole game, but maybe if they just kind of played their cards right, this could be a much better version. And it's worse. I think the NES game is actually better. And I wasn't expecting to say that. Steve, honestly, I'm not even going to give the first level credit that much, because there's too many cheap shit things where you could just easily fall off a bridge by standing on the wrong part, or like the floor will just like fall out from under you, like, and you lose an entire life, man. Like, it's a lot.
Oh, it's not great, but again, I'm grading on a curve for what's on the rest of the app.
Sure, of course. I'm going to give it a D+, just because the visuals are great. I always love the gimmick of, I'm going to kick you and my foot's going to grow really big, or my hands are going to turn into an anvil as I smash you double hand. I love that shit. It's great, right? I will never get tired of it. And the music, as you said, is great. So I'm going to give it a D+, but man,
I like all that stuff, and we didn't get enough of that stuff, and that's why I'm only giving it a D. A very saddened D, because I saw that thing pop up on the Microsoft Rareware sizzle reel at that partner presentation, and I was excited. Oh boy, Battletoads on the Switch, and nah.
Yep, so sad. 2 Rareware games, both complete duds, unfortunately. Well, let's move on to something I like a lot more than that. And that would be Super R-Type, which was released in September 91 for SNES. Steve, that's like very soon, because that thing came out late August, so this must have been within the first month of SNES.
Oh, you can tell.
You can tell. We'll get to that. And developed and published by IREM, of course.
I remember them. Sorry.
We all do. And Super R-Type is a heavily remixed and reimagined version of R-Type 2. And R-Type 2 came out a couple years prior in 1989. And Super R-Type is sort of a version of that, but honestly, Steve, I don't know if you ever played R-Type 2. Super R-Type is its own game to me. It doesn't feel like here's R-Type 2 on SNES. This is its own thing. Almost like Rondo of Blood and Dracula X. I feel like this is like really different enough to call it something else.
Guys at home, don't tell Andre I haven't played R-Type 2.
Oh my God.
Or he's going to beat me.
Hey, people at home, tell Steve that when I word stuff that way, I'm giving him an out to the audience so he doesn't have to admit that he didn't play R-Type 2.
No, don't put down the R-Type stick. No, not the Bido beat or anything but that.
I'll Bido burst you tonight, baby. Whoa, who said that?
Whoa,
what?
That took
where did that come from? What? That was weird. Anyway, Steve, I don't give a fuck. We're talking about the music first, okay? Because it's incredible.
The music is very good, and it shows off what the Super Nintendo can do in its early life very well, but you're far more qualified to tell the people why more than me.
Well, I mean, it's like you said, we both have an affinity for that early SNES sound. You know, well, we have an affinity for SNES sound in general, but particularly there's something about that era that is not necessarily better than other SNES music, but there's a certain quality to it that's fun. I believe this episode hasn't aired yet by the time this one will air, but we talked about this while we talked about Smart Ball on our Game Freak thing, where it's just, it has that certain quality to it that's very interesting and it's very unique. And Super R-Type is maybe the best example of that now, more than Smart Ball, more than Super Castlevania 4, I'll even say. Super R-Type nails it. Every song in this game smokes, dude. Like, when you think R-Type, you usually think like a certain kind of hard-ed sci-fi type of soundscape, and this game still has that to a degree, but Super R-Type is like, nah, it's the 90s now, bitch. Get ready to feel this chill. And chill it does. This soundtrack slows it down, smooths it out, chills it down, and it's very, very 1991. Can we say that much?
You know, it's only occurring to me now that you said it out loud. It is very chill soundtrack for a shmup.
Yeah, but that's the 90s, though. You know, as we hit the early 90s, we're like, enough with the 80s loud and, you know, gaudy bullshit. Now we're gonna slow it down. We're gonna jazz it out. And that's really what I think about when it comes to these compositions of not just the old music from R-Type 2 that's remixed, but like the newer compositions in here as well. There's songs in here with titles like As Wet as a Fish and Dream of a Labyrinth. Like that's the kind of shit we're working with here. And yes, the appropriate musical cues from the 70s are taken. It's fantastic stuff. Can't say enough great stuff about the music. Maybe a top 10 SNES soundtrack for me.
Andre, it's a great soundtrack.
I feel like you're about to let me down easy on something here. That's the kind of tone of voice you take with me when you're about to crush me.
Well, you are the shmup professor.
Am I?
Well, in comparison to me, you are much better at these than I am.
Okay.
There's nothing I could say about this game that you can't better. But as the Super Nintendo liker of the show, the self-professed Super Nintendo liker of our show, I'm the one that needs to stand out in front of the bullet and admit out loud, it was not the place for these games, generally speaking. And this was no exception, especially as probably one of the first of these on this system. Because for all of those sweet tunes and those very classically Super Nintendo sound effects, which I could never hope to reproduce on the air, you nuts, I'm not that guy from Police Academy. That slowdown, Andre, was the pits, dude.
It's bad. That's the most early SNES thing about it, huh? It's runs an almost constant slowdown. Like I always ding Gradius 3 for this, and that's not a very good port to me for other reasons besides that. But man, the slowdown in Super R-Type is rough. I'm not gonna lie. And you know me, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Slowdown is not a thing that usually bothers me. People talk about it with Super Ghouls and Ghosts, another early SNES game. Doesn't bother me at all. Really doesn't. I'd rather they show all the frames slowly than skip them. So I'll take it, is what I usually say. However, man, Super R-Type, woof. It makes the game very slow. Not so much like the first level or so, but once you get into like, it's the stage where As Wet as a Fish plays. I think it's literally like the water stage. That's like, oh my God, that's when you get really slow. And then the stage with the moving walls, remember that one where they keep disconnecting and connecting? That was almost entirely slow down.
I was gonna say there was that, and there were a number of other levels where there were just narrow corridors, and I don't know if I was just being a dum-dum or if they weren't being very helpful, but there was no real help in telling whether they were, whether that was a narrow corridor, if that was just part of the background. I kept crashing my ass into walls I thought that weren't there for, more than I care to admit on this show. And Andre, I got to bring up, you start again from the very beginning when you die in a level in this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's get to that, okay? And that is my big beef with the game. But let me do a little explaining for people who don't play shmups, because not everyone does. So in these types of games, I know, right? So in these types of games, when you die, one of two things usually happens, okay? One thing that can happen is the game stops and puts you back at a previous checkpoint. And these checkpoints are invisible in that you don't know that you crossed one until you die, and then you get put back at that point, okay? So that's option number one. Option number two is that you respawn on the spot and you keep on playing. The game just keeps scrolling continuously, and they just give you a little bit of like invincibility for like a few seconds to get your bearings, right? But you just keep playing. There's no going back when you die, only forwards. And that's it. So those are usually the two things that happens when you die in a shmup. However, Super R-Type takes neither of those approaches and instead invents a secret third option, which is what Steve said. Every time you die, you start the entire stage over from the beginning. Every single time. No exceptions. Even if you get to the boss and you die, you're doing the entire stage over again. Steve, what the fuck were they thinking? How could anyone with a modicum of how this genre works do that? They know how devastating that is. And look, I was going to say I'm going to give them a little bit of a leeway. I'm not actually giving them any leeway. This game isn't as hard as other R-Type games, granted, okay? Still, though, you can mess up at any point. Steve, imagine if we had to play R-Type 2 a few years ago with no stage checkpoints. We would never beat that game. And I would imagine a lot of people got Super R-Type and didn't beat this game either.
Yeah, this is where I'm at. Again, I didn't play this game until it appeared on the app, but I read about this game over and over again on the old Super Nintendo guide from Nintendo Power, and it looked fascinating to me. I guess seeing, the Bitos and shit, the comparison from the arcade version to, what they were trying to show off on the Super Nintendo version. Anyway, I never had the privilege till now. And, using the rental analogy I like to use around here, like from last show, this would have probably enjoyed some rental status had local stores not given up on this by the time I got my own Super Nintendo. And I guess what I'm really saying with this is a good game for Nintendo Switch Online. You could just take it in, invent your own checkpoints, and then when you're done, you can just move on. You don't have to harp on, oh no, I spent 1991 US dollars on Super R-Type, and it is beating my ass in, and I can't afford food for the week.
Okay, first of all, I sincerely doubt cartridge prices. Like, if a launch SNES game, Super R-Type, or anything more than 8 megabytes, they fucked up royally. Like, if they were really charging that, I know you're doing it for the joke, but I'm just thinking, like, if it actually costs that much, that would be insane. It's like I said, though, this could have worked if they balanced the entire game around this. Like, okay, stage 3 of the original R-Type, the big Bido ship, where you're scrolling on the bottom and you have to shoot the penis thing, and then you beat the stage. That has no checkpoints. There's no checkpoints in stage 3 of the original R-Type. You have to do all that in one go. And it works because it's not that hard of a stage, and it's just figuring out how to maneuver and where to maneuver. The boss isn't even really that challenging. It's just about maneuverability and learning that. So that's what makes it fun. So Super R-Type could have done that, but they don't do that. So I wanted to give it a B-, but I don't think I can do that in good conscience. Like, a shmup that has no checkpoints in levels cannot get anything higher than a C+, and that's the highest I can give it.
Yeah, I'm not as good at the shmups as Andre is, like I said earlier, so C.
C it is. All right, let's move on to our final game.
Okay, guys, so our final game is Wrecking Crew 98. Wait, what? Yeah. So, this came out on New Year's Day in 1998 in Japan, developed and published by Nintendo. Originally released on the Super Famicom download service called Nintendo Power. Yes, it was Nintendo Power, not like the magazine, but not related to it in any way. You took a blank cartridge and you brought it to the store into a kiosk and you paid some money and it wrote games on there. There was a Super Nintendo one and a Game Boy one. It was very interesting, kind of like the Famicom disk system, but just with cartridges.
Yeah. Then for those who don't know, the Famicom disk system games weren't just sold in stores. You could also go to a kiosk and bring a blank Famicom disc and write a game to it as well.
Yeah, but later on, well, not too much later, they released it as a regular-ass retail game in May of 1998. And we got to play it for the first time officially in April of 2024 on Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Switch Online.
We sure did. And this is one that I knew it existed, of course, but I never laid eyes on it. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew Wrecking Crew 98. And if you were to ask me beforehand, I would have just assumed it was like the original game with a Super Nintendo facelift. Not literally the original levels or something, like new levels, but just basically the same concept. And Steve, that is not what this game is.
I don't know. This game is already weird as fuck, because unless there's a Satellaview game that I'm not familiar with, this is the one game with a Charles Martinet voice sample on the Super Nintendo, and we didn't get it.
Oh yeah, it is him, huh? I just figured they got whatever person in the office to sound like Mario. I guess, yeah, shit. You don't even really think of a Super Nintendo game coming out after Super Mario 64, but yeah, I guess that's the case, huh?
And similar to Excitebike 64 from our last show, they have original-ass Wrecking Crew on this thing that you could just blow it up. And, Andre, it doesn't look or sound right at all.
This version is cursed, isn't it? It's somehow cursed.
In 1998, it would have been an okay bonus, but today, just hop on the NES app for Wrecking Crew.
Well, I don't think this version's bad to play. Like, it plays fine enough, but there's just something about it that it's obviously not emulation, right? Because that wasn't a thing yet on consoles. So they had to recreate it probably from scratch. So did they just sample all the NES like sound chip stuff? Or maybe that's built into the SPC 700 chip? I don't know how that shit works.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know how that works either.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, the original Wrecking Crew of sorts is there if you want to play it, but you can also choose Wrecking Crew 98 mode, and this is really the meat of the game here. I I'm going to leave this to you to describe how this game works because I played it for a solid hour and I'm not sure that I totally understood what I was doing. I had fun, but I don't think I understood it. So I'm going to leave it to you, the puzzle guy.
Oh, now I'm the puzzle guy. Ooh,
You're the puzzle guy. If I'm the shmup professor, you got to be the puzzle guy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I keep dancing around this because Wrecking Crew 98 isn't like Wrecking Crew 2 at all. Not that it's a bad thing. Spoilers for later. It's a versus puzzle game. I can't read the story. They do give you a story. Maybe Andre can help. But from what I can deduce from looking at the pictures, it looks like Bowser's trying to clear out space for condos. And you got to clear them out. And along with his minions, along with Form and Spike, by moving tiles along conveyor belts. And causing combos to happen by matching 3 or more of the same color. So as to make problems for your opponent, like little minions or extra brick layers to go on blocks that make him hard. It's a bit like if Wario's Woods and Penelope had a baby that they left at the firehouse.
The stork delivered a baby to the firehouse. Wario's Woods is a really good comp because you're actually controlling a character. I think that's the thing we need to stress. You are actually controlling Mario, going up to these things and pulling these levers to change these things. But you also have to be active in the fact that, like, you're climbing up and down a ladder to get to different levels of your playfield and turning these different cranks as well as hammering them. So it's as active as like the original Wrecking Crew in that regard. But man, it's very, very, very strange. It took me, I don't know how many games it took you. It took me a little bit to be like, oh, I think I understand what they want me to do here.
Yeah, it took me a number of games too, and I'll admit that my explanation isn't the best. And I can admit that I gotta get this out of the way too, because as happy as I was to play it and even enjoyed it, Wrecking Crew 98 is one of the worst things a puzzle game could be, and that is, it's not newcomer friendly at all.
No, it really isn't.
As an English speaker, I'll admit this to being on me for playing what's in, it's an import title. I couldn't go on to how to play and follow along with the instructions if I wanted to, but think about any of its forebears like Tetris or even the 2 games I just brought up, Wario's Woods or Penelope. You can teach those games to yourself. This has a few literal moving parts, and they might not be what you want to deal with when Penelope's right there.
I mean, yeah, this isn't... I'm just thinking of like my mom, basically. Like, she growing up, she would play Tetris with me or Dr. Mario, right? If I got her this, she would be lost into, like, imagine. Like, it would just be like, what the hell is this? The most complicated she would get is Clacks, right? So Wrecking Crew 98 is like insane. I could see her picking up like a magical drop or something like that faster than I could this.
I mean, it's not bad. You just gotta follow along. It's not gonna be for everyone. I'm not seeing the internet clamoring for Wrecking Crew 99, by which I mean, a battle royale game, not to travel back almost 20 years ago to make a third one of these.
25 years ago.
Don't age me on the air, Andre.
I'm older than you, okay? I'm allowed.
Yeah, I know.
All right. But yeah, man, I like this game. It's unique, but is it good? I think it's good. I will admit that I don't understand like the underlying strategy or whatever, so I can't tell if the game is deeper than I'm seeing or if it's really as weird and frivolous as it appears, right? Either way, I certainly had a good enough time with it. I will go back and play more and, pulling switches, hammering walls while the computer avalanche. I've never beat the computer, by the way. That's how shitty I am at this. I can barely beat like the first level or two.
I did beat the campaign, well, such as it is, but there's like a few alternate characters too, but that are just regular. Well, not regular. There's one guy that's just a Japanese carpenter, and there's another guy. Well, not a guy. It's just an onigiri that just stands there, and I'm like, and I think he was harder than Bowser, but The point is, I think you nailed it. This was the advanced level Super Nintendo game for people that have been with the console the whole time and were looking for something to play in 1998.
Considering how Nintendo of America was really into putting out puzzle games only for us on N64, like Dr. Mario 64 and like Pokemon Puzzle League and shit like that only came out here and not Japan, you would think that they would make like Wrecking Crew 98 like part of one of their like, I don't know, I guess that's harder to put on a cartridge for $65-$70, huh?
Yeah, but now we do these apps, so we'll never get these thoughts together.
I'm gonna give Wrecking Crew 98 a B. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that sounds right. I'm giving mine a personal B plus, just because just me having a personal bias towards this is my Devil World, I guess, in a way. I was like, ooh, a Super Nintendo game I haven't played. In a way, yeah. But B plus, knowing that your own personal mileage is going to definitely vary.
All right, B plus. I can definitely see that if you're more of a puzzle person. I feel like that's fair. But for me, yeah, definitely a B, and I want to play more. And shit, I think that's it. We got anything else? That was 6 games. I think we'll have to just keep doing these. Come back with another 6 games, or maybe even 5, Steve, because recently Capcom put all 5 Mega Man Game Boy games on Game Boy, Nintendo Switch Online, and I have never played those games ever for like 1 second. So you want to make that our next one? Let's commit right now. What do you say?
Oh, it sounds like we'll have to. You're in for varying degrees of treatness, I think.
Okay.
You'll see.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Next time we come back with a Nintendo Switch Online app extravaganza. That'll probably be the Mega Man game, so look forward to that in the future. But until then, we'll see you next time. Check the description of this podcast for links to social media. Follow us on Twitter at FineTimePodcast. Rate and review us if you're feeling really generous, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
We'll see you next time on Fine Time.